All right, let's dive into this Berwyn Mountain incident. It's one of those things that's been bugging people for years, like what really happened back on January 23rd, 1974. In the Berwyn Mountains in North Wales, an explosion, bright lights, and then a whole lot of head scratching. People saw some pretty strange stuff that night. And even the official story leaves a lot of questions unanswered. So we've got all the research and notes here, ready to unpack it all.
Yeah, what gets me is it happened in Landrillo, this tiny, quiet village. You wouldn't expect something so wild to happen there. But that's kind of what makes it so interesting, I guess. Like, ordinary place, extraordinary events, like a glitch in the system right in the middle of Wales.
So let's try and picture this. It's night. You're in this peaceful village, tucked away in these dramatic mountains,
Hmm.
and suddenly, bam! This huge explosion rocks the ground, and then there's this blinding light in the sky. Now everyone's saying different things. Some folks are talking about a cigar-shaped object. Others saw weird lights moving all over the place. Some even said they heard crazy sounds. It's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But it's happening right there in this quiet little Welsh village.
Chaos, right. Total chaos.
Yep.
Police and emergency services rushed in, but they couldn't find anything. No wreckage, no debris, nothing to explain what happened. And that's the really weird part. The lack of evidence, it just adds to the whole mystery.
Okay, so what about the official explanation? They said it was an earthquake, right?
Okay, an earthquake. But, and here's the kicker, there's no seismic records to back it up. And you'd think if it was a big enough earthquake to cause all that commotion, there'd be some signs, like cracks in the ground, landslides, something. But there was nothing like that. It's like the earth shook without an actual earthquake.
Wow, yeah, that's a pretty big hole in the story. Seems like the official explanation just raises more questions. So where do we go from here?
Well, this is where things get interesting. We've got all these theories, some totally normal, and then some that are, well, kind of out there. But we got to be careful with each one. Look at the evidence, or lack of it, before jumping to conclusions.
Right, so let's start with the more down-to-earth explanations.
Hmm.
One that pops up a lot is secret military operations. The Berwyn Mountains, kind of remote, rugged terrain, could be a good spot for, covert stuff.
Uh-huh.
Governments have been known to keep secrets.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there were military bases near the Berwyn Mountains at the time, so the explosion, the light, could have been some kind of training exercise. Maybe something went wrong, or they were testing new technology, maybe a new aircraft or weapon. Governments have tried to cover up stuff like that before.
But wouldn't someone have said something by now? You'd think there'd be at least a rumor or two.
Well, that's the thing with government secrets. They're good at keeping things quiet, especially when it comes to national security. And even if there were rumors, people would probably just dismiss them as, conspiracy theories, nothing to see here. It's really hard to tell what's real and what's not in these cases.
Yeah, I get that. It's an appealing theory, especially with the lack of evidence for the earthquake. But it does rely on a lot of guesswork, doesn't it? Like, assuming the government can keep a lid on something this big.
Exactly. And then there's the whole idea of hoaxes and mass hysteria. Like, could the whole thing have been faked? Or did people just misinterpret what they saw? Maybe they were scared or excited and saw things that weren't really there.
Okay, so let's talk about this mass hysteria thing for a second. The idea is that people, especially in groups, they can get caught up in a shared belief and start seeing and hearing things that aren't actually happening. It's a psychological thing, right? Happened throughout history. Could that be a factor here?
It's possible, yeah. It's dark, there's this sudden noise and a bright light. People are going to be startled, confused, trying to make sense of it. And in that state, rumors and speculation spread like wildfire. People start influencing each other and things get distorted.
Right. So we got secret military operations, hoaxes, mass hysteria. But we can't ignore the big one, can we? We got to talk about the aliens.
Of course, the alien theory. It's the one that really captures the imagination. A cigar-shaped object crashing into a mountain. It's classic sci-fi. And then you add in the alleged government cover-up. It just adds fuel to the fire.
Okay, so let's dive in.
Mhm.
What are the main arguments for the alien theory? What evidence do they have?
Well, they often start with the eyewitness accounts, the ones that describe something that doesn't look like any human technology. The cigar shape, the weird movements, the strange lights. They say these details point to something beyond our understanding of, aircraft.
And what about the government cover-up? What evidence do they use for that?
They look at the problems with the earthquake explanation. No seismic data, no physical evidence at the crash site. They say it all points to a cover-up, like the government's hiding the truth about aliens.
So they're saying the government is hiding an alien crash. But why? What would be the point?
There are a few ideas about that. Some think they're trying to prevent mass panic. Like, if people knew about aliens, society would fall apart. Others say the government wants alien technology for themselves, and they don't want other countries to get it. And then there are those who believe in a bigger conspiracy, like the government's been working with aliens for years.
Wow, those are some pretty wild ideas. But it's interesting to think about the possibilities. Secret military operations, hoaxes, mass hysteria, even aliens. It's a whole buffet of theories. But before we get too lost in all that, let's bring it back to the people who were there. How did the Berwyn Mountain incident affect the people of Landrello?
It had a huge impact, you can imagine. This quiet village suddenly becomes the center of something massive, something nobody can explain. It must have been terrifying, confusing, like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that would be unsettling, to say the least. To have your whole world turned upside down by something you don't understand. How do they cope with that?
It wasn't easy, that's for sure. There was fear, uncertainty, but also a strong sense of community. People came together, shared their experiences, tried to make sense of it all. And over time, the Berwyn Mountain incident became part of their identity. It's part of their local folklore now. They've got UFO-themed events, attract visitors, researchers. It's become a part of who they are.
That's really interesting. They didn't shy away from it. They embraced it, turned a potentially traumatic event into something positive.
Yeah, exactly. It shows how resilient people can be. We can adapt to even the strangest, most unsettling things, and it shows the power of mystery. Even without answers, the Berwyn Mountain incident keeps people fascinated, draws them in with its mix of the ordinary and the extraordinary.
Well said. We've set the scene, looked at the official explanation and its problems, and even dipped our toes into the world of alternative theories. But we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover, more evidence to look at, more perspectives to consider. We'll be back soon to dive deeper into these explanations, from the plausible to the completely out there. Stay tuned.
So let's dig into these theories a bit more, starting with those covert military operations. Remember, it's 1974, Cold War's going strong, governments are messing around with all sorts of new tech, and the Berwyn Mountains, isolated, tough terrain, could have been a perfect spot for testing things out, right?
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, as they say. But what kind of operations are we talking about specifically? What could cause that explosion and the bright light everyone saw?
Well, there are a few possibilities. Some folks think it could have been them testing advanced aircraft, like experimental jets, or even early versions of stealth technology. Maybe they were pushing the limits of speed and altitude, causing sonic booms or some kind of atmospheric disturbance that people mistook for an explosion in a strange light.
Interesting. So not necessarily a crash, but maybe a test flight gone wrong, or just some unexpected side effects.
Yeah.
I could see how that could explain some of the eyewitness accounts, especially those describing a cigar-shaped thing moving erratically.
Exactly. And then there's the possibility of electronic warfare testing. During the Cold War, there was tons of research into disrupting enemy radar and communications. Maybe the Berwyn Mountain incident was a result of a powerful electromagnetic pulse, or some other electronic warfare experiment, something that messed with local signals, created weird visuals, maybe even caused power outages.
Oh, now that's a really intriguing idea. It fits with those reports of weird noises and electrical problems some people mentioned. And if that's the case, shouldn't there be some record of these experiments? Wouldn't someone have spilled the beans by now?
Well, maybe, but remember, these were highly classified operations. Top secret stuff, buried deep in government archives, if they even exist anymore. And whistleblowers, they risk a lot when they try to expose that kind of information, especially when it comes to national security.
Right, of course.
Mhm.
It's easy to forget the kind of pressure people are under in those situations. Finding that balance between transparency and protecting sensitive information, it's tricky.
It is. And we got to be realistic. We may never have all the answers, but that doesn't mean we can't explore different possibilities and try to figure out the most likely scenario based on what we do know.
So we've looked at the military angle, or at least part of it.
Yeah.
What about those other explanations? Hoaxes, mass hysteria, that kind of thing. I know some people dismiss them completely, but could they be part of what happened at Berwyn Mountain?
We have to consider everything, right? Hoaxes and mass hysteria have definitely shaped how people see unexplained events throughout history. Let's start with hoaxes. Could someone have staged the whole thing, created the illusion of an explosion in a strange light? I mean, it's not impossible, but it would take a lot of planning and resources and some serious technical know-how.
Yeah, you'd need a pretty sophisticated setup to pull that off, especially in such a remote area. And what would be the motive? Why go through all that trouble to fake a UFO incident in Wales?
Well, there are a few reasons people do that sort of thing. Sometimes it's for fame, attention, wanting to make a splash, get their name out there. Sometimes it's for money, hoping to cash in on media attention, book deals, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, there are some people who have more less than noble motives, trying to spread disinformation, so distrust in the government.
So we can't rule out a hoax completely, even if it seems unlikely, given how complex the event was. What about mass hysteria, then? How could that play into the Berwyn Mountain incident?
Mass hysteria, it's a really interesting phenomenon. Happens when a group of people, usually in a stressful or uncertain situation, start experiencing the same physical or psychological symptoms, even though there's no real medical or environmental cause. Like a wave of anxiety and suggestibility.
And you're thinking this could have influenced how people saw what happened at Berwyn Mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it. A small, tight-knit community. They see this weird event and nobody can explain it. Fear and uncertainty spread quickly, right? And in that state, people are more open to suggestion. They start influencing each other, adding details, filling in gaps with assumptions, and you end up with a story that might be completely different from what actually happened.
Like a game of telephone,
Yeah.
where the message gets distorted as it's passed around. And in the case of the Berwyn Mountain incident, that distortion could have been amplified by the darkness, the isolation, and that feeling of unease that comes with events we can't explain.
Exactly. And then the media gets involved. Sensational headlines, dramatic retellings, everyone focusing on the craziest theories. That just adds to the anxiety and confusion.
Right, so we've got some possible explanations that involve human actions, whether intentional or unintentional. But now let's talk about the theory that everyone seems to love, the possibility of extraterrestrials.
Ah, yes, the alien theory, the one that always gets people excited. And let's be honest, it's a pretty cool idea, the thought that we might not be alone in the universe. But like any theory, we have to look at it critically. Examine the evidence, separate fact from fiction.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are the main arguments for the Berwyn Mountain incident being a UFO event?
Well, they often focus on those eyewitness accounts, the ones that describe something that doesn't look like any known aircraft. The cigar shape, the strange lights, the weird movements. They say it matches descriptions of UFOs from other places.
So they're looking for patterns, similarities between this event and other UFO sightings.
Yeah.
What about the government cover-up angle? How does that fit in with the alien theory?
They point to the problems with the earthquake explanation again. No seismic data, no physical evidence at the scene. They say it points to a cover-up. The government's hiding the truth about an alien crash.
Okay, so let's say, for argument's sake, that's true. Why would the government cover up an alien encounter? What would be the reason?
There are a few different ideas about that. Some people think they're afraid of mass panic, like revealing alien contact would cause society to collapse. Others think the government wants alien technology for themselves, and they don't want other countries to get their hands on it. And then there are those who believe in a much bigger conspiracy. Like, the government's been working with aliens for years.
Those are some pretty big claims.
They are, and it's important to remember, they're based on speculation, not hard evidence.
Right, we're getting into what-if territory here. But even if we can't prove or disprove the alien theory, it's still interesting to think about, isn't it? It makes us question what we think we know about the universe and our place in it.
Absolutely. Just because we haven't found proof of aliens doesn't mean they haven't visited. It just means the mystery's still unsolved. And that's part of what makes the Berwyn Mountain incident so fascinating.
Okay, so we've got all these theories: secret military operations, hoaxes, mass hysteria, even aliens. But as we go through them all, I keep coming back to one question.
What's that?
Why does this event still capture our imagination after all these years? Why is this particular incident so captivating?
That's a great question. I think there are a few things at play here. First, there's the mystery itself. We don't have a clear explanation. The eyewitness accounts are all over the place. There are so many unanswered questions. It's intriguing, draws us in, like a puzzle we can't solve, a story with missing pages.
Yeah, I get that. It's like a good mystery novel. You're always looking for clues.
Exactly. And then there's the timing. The Berwyn Mountain incident happened when interest in UFOs and the paranormal was really high. You had shows like In Search Of on TV. People were fascinated by the unknown, and the Cold War was making people anxious about government secrets and threats from space. It was the perfect time for an event like this to capture everyone's attention.
Right, it played into all those existing fears and fascinations.
Exactly. And then there's the setting. The Berwyn Mountains, they're beautiful, rugged, remote. The perfect backdrop for a story about something unexplained. It's a place where you can believe anything could happen.
Yeah, the landscape itself adds to the mystery.
It does. And lastly, I think there's a deeper psychological reason. Humans are curious by nature, right? We want explanations. We want to understand the world. And when we encounter something that doesn't fit into our neat categories, it sparks our imagination, makes us want to explore the unknown.
That's a great point. The Berwyn Mountain Incident, it's a mix of the ordinary and the extraordinary. It makes us question what we think is real.
It does. It reminds us that there are still mysteries out there, things we don't fully understand. And that's what keeps us coming back to the Berwyn Mountain incident. It's a story that keeps evolving, invites new interpretations, keeps our curiosity alive.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, looking at all sorts of explanations for the Berwyn Mountain Incident, from the plausible to the, well, pretty wild. But as you said, the real power of this event is in its mystery. It captures our imagination and makes us think about the possibilities. Thinking about the people in Landrillo, their village became kind of famous, or infamous, I guess, for this unexplained event. I wonder how they deal with that.
It's a strange situation, right? Imagine living in a place that suddenly attracts all these UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists. Some people might find it a bit much, while others might enjoy the attention, maybe even make a business out of it.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of Landrillo online. They have UFO-themed signs, shops. There's even a UFO festival every year. They've really incorporated it into their community.
It shows how adaptable people can be. We can take even the weirdest, most unsettling experiences and make them part of our lives, find meaning in them, even humor.
It's amazing how the Berwyn Mountain Incident has become this modern folklore. People tell the story, add their own spin on it, embellish details, pass it down through generations.
It's a shared story that connects people, and like all good folklore, it has a purpose. Helps us understand the world, deal with our fears, explore what we believe is possible.
It's interesting to think about how technology would have changed things. Back in 1974, no smartphones, no social media. The story spread slowly through word of mouth, newspapers, maybe TV news. But today, something like this would be all over the internet instantly.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine the videos, the photos, the eyewitness accounts on social media, a constant stream of information, speculation, misinformation. It makes you wonder if the mystery could have survived in this digital age. Would it have been solved or debunked by the internet hive mind?
That's a good point. The internet can be both a help and a hindrance with these kinds of events. It helps with sharing information and collaborating. But it also creates a breeding ground for rumors and conspiracy theories.
And it's so hard to tell what's real and what's fake online. We're constantly bombarded with information. It's more important than ever to think critically and evaluate sources.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Berwyn Mountain Incident, I want to leave you with this. What makes this event so enduring? Is it the mystery itself, the conflicting stories, the lack of answers? Or is it something more profound? Something about our human curiosity, our desire to explore the unknown, to consider the possibility that there's more to the universe than we know.
That's what's so great about the Berwyn Mountain incident. It makes us ask these questions, to think critically, to consider different perspectives, to acknowledge that we don't know everything. It reminds us that the world is still full of mysteries, and that the search for understanding never really ends.
Well said. And who knows? Maybe someday new evidence will surface, and we'll finally understand what happened that night in January 1974. But until then, the Berwyn Mountain Incident remains a fascinating puzzle, a reminder that the world is full of wonder. And there's always something new to learn, to explore, to discover.
Absolutely. Keep looking up at the sky, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring the mysteries around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.